Hey everybody, my name is Danny. So this is something brand new that I'm trying. Fingers crossed, there'll be another one of these next week. What I'm doing today is I'm reading through the Parsha. The Parshiot, if I'm saying that correctly, like number one, first of all, I'm entirely unqualified to even teach this. So don't consider any of this to be gospel. Definitely don't make any major life decisions on anything that I'm about to say. So definitely consult your Bibles before doing anything like that. All right. The Torah, or the first 5 books of what Christians call the Old Testament, what Jews call the Tanakh. First 5 books of that is called the Torah. Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, and Deuteronomy. And the Hebrew calendar is separated such so that by the end of the year, you actually make it, the end of their year, you actually make it through the entire Torah. The purpose of this is so that you continue to read the Torah each and every year, and you get through the Torah every year. So we start with Bereishis. Bereishis is the very, very beginning, and I got my handy dandy living Torah here. I've also got the Source New Testament. I am also clearly surrounded by other life who's deciding to really honk right now. So I think I'll take this moment to take a sip from my bone china commemorative cup commemorating the marriage of Prince Andrew and Miss Sarah Ferguson on the 23rd of July, 1986. Okay, so Bereishis, this first section of the Torah, Genesis 1 through 6:8, it covers about 1,700 years of human history, so it's a pretty big one. Now, the thing with this is where you meet Adam and Eve are created, and you meet the snake, and you got the animals and all that kind of stuff. And we have the tendency, because we've heard all of these stories since we were a child, to really fall into what Rabbi David Foreman, one of my favorite rabbis, Rabbi David Foreman refers to as the lullaby effect, which is effectively, you hear something that's actually quite grotesque in nature. In elementally, it's quite grotesque, but because it's a lullaby, you kind of this rhythmic thing, and it's like it doesn't bother you, right? Lullaby baby on the treetop. When the wind blows, the cradle will rock. When the bough breaks, the cradle will fall, and down will come baby, cradle and all. So Rabbi Foreman says, if you didn't know that story, you might ask a series of questions. Like, let's clarify here. First of all, how high up was the cradle in this tree? How tall was the tree? Why was the baby there? Did its mother put it there? Did the baby die? Is an ambulance on its way now? And, why are you telling me this? Are you trying to get me to sleep? Are you going to put me in a tree? As a child, right? So that's what he refers to as the lullaby effect. It's and what he's saying is we've got to kind of take ourselves out of this, and we've got to read the Bible with very, very fresh eyes. Okay, I have been reading the Bible since I was a tot, and many of you, I'm sure, have as well. And so it's nice and easy. By the way, I've got a lapel mic down here, and occasionally it flops. Okay, so you gotta just tell me if my lapel mic is flopping. Okay, I'm counting on you. So we got to take ourselves out of there, and a lot of us have been reading these stories since we were, just yay high, and so we've got to look on things with fresh eyes if we're going to really come to understand more of the text, because it's a really, really deep book. Like, if this is God's instruction for life, it's actually, it's not that thick, right? If these are the instructions for life, then chances are there's some pretty important stuff in here. And we've got to look on things as freshly as possibly, so that we can get as much out of it as possible. All right. So we're going to kick off, and I'm just going to go through the notes. All right. I'm not going to read the whole thing. You can read that yourself. Genesis 1 through 6:8. All right. Away you go. I'll pause the video while you do that. You pause it. Okay. So the first week, we know Bereishis pretty well. Lullaby effect, as I covered that, we start this journey through the Torah using fresh eyes, okay? So if you're going to make a commitment to anything, if you're going to follow along on this little journey here, then just commit to reading everything each week with fresh eyes, okay? So that's that's number one. Just make that commitment to yourself because, hey, it's just 1 year, right? Okay, and then like every other year you can go back to reading it like a zombie, okay? But I don't think you will. Okay, first week ends in a Sabbath, Saturday. God created the earth, 6 days, seventh day, time to rest, right? And there's the Sabbath blessing. So this is why I work 6 days and I only rest one. It's why I rest on Saturday, not typically on Sunday. Although Sunday's a bit of a cruisy day because most people also like take off Sunday, and in fact, as a matter of fact, more people would work Saturdays than Sundays. But that's not me, so I completely take off on Saturday. Sunday's a cruisier day, but I'm still working. I'm just working on other things, right? So now here's a big question. Why? Because we get to the point where it's like the tree of knowledge of good and evil, and then the tree of life. Okay, if you recall, there are actually two trees. Okay, so why create the 2 trees in the first place? That was kind of the first thing that struck me. Why would we create 2 trees? Why wouldn't we just create the 1 tree? Why would we create any trees whatsoever? What's kind of the whole point of this? So then after the and this actually led to what I'm probably going to spend a fair whack of time talking about right here. This was the real aha moment for me, these 2 trees, okay? And that's the thing. Every time you read through the Torah, every time you get back to Bereishis, you're going to actually, it's going to be like, what is like striking me right now? Because ideally at that point, 1 year later, you will have grown as a human being, okay? So you're not supposed to be the same person that you're in. Like, I'm not going to be the same person next year when I'm reading through this. I'm going to come upon different things in this tree of knowledge of good and evil. What the 2 trees, this choice thing that I've got right here, it's like a bupkis. I'm probably not even going to, like, that's not even going to register with me. Ideally, it's not going to register. If it does still register, that's kind of like a gut check. It's like, how much have I not grown in a year? That's no bueno, Got to be grown. Okay, so let's like blast through this. That way we don't spend too much time. So after we got the 2 trees, then we've got the parade of the animals. I'm just kind of giving you the highlights of the book. So we've got the first week ends in a Sabbath, 6 days, 1 rest. They created 2 trees. And then we got the parade of the animals. Adam names them, and it's like, oh, I'm looking for compatibility. I don't really like that hippo. The fox is nice, but not really my style. And ultimately goes through the entire alphabet of animals and comes up blank. It's like, God, nothing. I don't like any of these. Like, they're nice, but no. Okay. So then we enter the woman. In Hebrew is ish is man, and isha is woman, meaning taken from man. By the way, I've been told that I kind of scratch my nose. I don't know. Maybe it's a nervous tick. I don't know. You're just going to have to deal with that, okay? But now you're going to notice it absolutely, okay? But I'm going to try not to. I don't know. I just find my nose particularly itchy when I film stuff, okay? Like, get over it. Okay, so enter the woman. Tick. Naked. The fact that they were naked is very important here. Because it's mentioned quite an awful lot. Now, I'm going to get into a little bit of the Hebrew here. I do not speak Hebrew. Everything that I'm repeating back to you, I have simply learned from somebody else. If you want an amazing website to go and learn from, I strongly suggest alephbeta.org. You'll find a link in the description. Got amazing videos over there, like really, really good stuff. Rabbi David Torman, that's one of the rabbis that I mentioned. Just amazing. Good stuff over there. Emu Shalev, really good guy, CEO. Okay, so naked. This is important. And the fact that they were not embarrassed is seemingly also important. That's important to the context of the story, but that does provide the context. Everybody's naked, and then now we've got the story and the setup. Okay. Next step, we enter the snake. Snake is described as cunning. Okay. Now, it's the word for, and this is again, here's the Hebrew. The word for cunning in Hebrew is arom. And apparently, like I said, go to aleph-beta.org for a little bit more information on this because it's just epic. Apparently, the word for arom is also, it's just a miscombobulation of the word used for naked. So it's like naked, naked, naked. They were naked, they were naked, they were naked, they were not ashamed. And then enter the snake and we've got cunning. So there's something similar. There's some kind of duality going back and forth between the humans and the snake. No other animal was ever described as naked. No other animal was ever described as cunning. We know that the snake is kind of weird. And I know that if you're a Christian, you're going to be thinking, oh, snake, well, that's the devil, right? So let me just ask you to take a step away from that idea right now, okay? Don't nail, proverbially, don't nail yourself to that cross right now. Again, fresh eyes, because right now you're going straight into that mindset of, oh, I know this, man and woman sin, thus creating original sin. It was the snake's fault. The snake is the devil, and etc., etc., okay? Just back away from that, okay? Right now, we're looking at this with fresh eyes. Here's a crime scene. We're not going to make any assumptions until we have fully gone through the text, okay? That's important, all right? It's you're not going to, there's nothing bad going to happen to you if you consider for a moment that the snake might not have been Satan. Might have been something completely different. Might have been something that's similar, but not. Might have been something that, is related to the Satan, which is what the Hebrews call it. The Jewish people call it the Satan. Another name for it is the Yetzer Hara, the inclination to evil, the evil inclination. The opposite to that is the Yetzer HaTov, which is the inclination to good, kind of this good angel, bad angel kind of thing. So just hold your horses there, all right? Moving on. Okay, so here's where it gets interesting. I told you about the whole nakedness, the word for naked and the word for cunning. They're the same thing. They're just two sides of the same coin. But what does the word naked seem to imply? And the fact that they were not embarrassed, that's also important. Like I mentioned that. It's not embarrassed. To me, that says that, okay, what are you when you're naked? You're completely vulnerable. I've seen my wife naked heaps and heaps and heaps of times. She is not the type of person who likes to be vulnerable with people, necessarily. Pretty guarded. I am the guy, and I wrote a book on this, I am the guy who saw that she was locked away in her own little tower, high walls, high turrets. There's guards posted, but they weren't inside the castle. And so, the children, the children, all right? Forgive the children. Okay, we're back. All right, so you've got this. So like I was saying about my wife, I needed to get inside her castle, right? And then we built bigger walls, better walls together, but now I was inside the castle, okay? So I was able to penetrate through her walls in order to get to her vulnerability. And that's where that thing is, that's where this nakedness is. Like I said, I've seen her naked heaps of times. Very, very few other people have. So that's important. Not embarrassed. She's not embarrassed in front of me. Naked in front of me. This vulnerability thing, right? Now, on the flip side, apparently this word cunning is just the other side of the coin to this naked thing, or this not embarrassed naked thing. Okay, so what does cunning seem to imply? If you're cunning, I've been cunning before. I'm sure other people have been cunning before who are watching this. It kind of, I don't know. To me, it says I'm not everything that I seem, right? In computer terms, nakedness and the not afraid thing. It's what we call WYSIWYG. In a computer language, it's what you see is what you get. It's an acronym or a palindrome or something like that. WYSIWYG. What you see is what you get, and that's where in websites you'll be. It's like drag and drop stuff, right? Whereas if you don't have a WYSIWYG editor, then you're dealing with zeros and ones, or you're dealing with code. Stuff that looks like one thing, but actually is going to appear as something else, okay? So this is seemingly what the text is implying here, that the snake was cunning, the snake was vulnerable, the snake had vulnerabilities. There was something about the snake that he didn't want them to know, and therefore he was hiding that. He was masking that in order to, pull one over on them. It seems to be what happened, right? Okay. So I'm just gonna float that out there and leave you to think about that. Okay, so we've got the setup. The snake has an agenda. I would imagine that the snake has an agenda. If I'm being cunning, I've got an agenda. I'm not just being cunning for the sake of it, right? And it's like, why would I waste all my cunning on that? Like I've got cunning, but I've only got so much cunning. Okay, so I'm not gonna just like blow it if I don't have some kind of agenda. If I don't want to do, if I don't want something. So what did I write here? Let's talk snake characteristics. Oh yeah, okay. Let's talk about the snake's characteristics. Okay, so cunning. He talks. He walks. It never says specifically that he walks, but it says in the curse after it all like goes to hell, is that he'd be slithering on the ground, eating dust and all that kind of stuff. So that implies that there was something different about him. Like perhaps he was kind of upright like this. I don't know. Skeptical, walks, curse. This, I don't know. I wrote down the word skeptical, and I don't exactly know why. I wrote this about a week ago. But it also seems like he had this element. Oh yeah, the skepticism. It's like, did God really say this? It's like, wait a second here. You're an animal. Like, where do you go and get off being skeptical? You are run on instinct. Are you not? Oh, my thing is really, like, nobody told me that. Come on. You run on instinct. There's like, we're the ones with the free will, right? So there seems to be an element of free will here. Like, so that kind of gives you an indication that, or at least it gives me an indication that the snake was something other than he appeared to be, that he was cunning, okay? Why God then cursed the snake specifically, I don't exactly know. There's this concept, there's this idea. Okay, so we've got the Yetzer Hara and then we've got the Yetzer HaTov. And everybody's dealt with it. It's like, the Yetzer HaTov, the good, the inclination towards good, that's an easy one. I see an elderly man lying bloody on the ground, I want to go and pick him up, The inclination, that's the Yetzer HaTov. The Yetzer Hara says, I see a bloody old man on the road. He's frail, he's obviously not with it right now. I'll bet he has money, so I'll go and see if he has a $5 because I want a coffee. Okay, that's the Yetzer HaTov. Okay, so there's this concept that when God made Adam and Eve initially, or Adam at least, I can't speak for Eve, I don't know, that he was made, kind of it's like a zeros and ones things. Okay. He started at a baseline. He started with with no proclivity to do evil or necessarily good. He was like perfectly weighted, And then on one hand, he's got the choice to do good. On the other hand, he's got the choice to do bad. And so for him, it was like, okay, well, this is the challenge, right? And if he had succeeded in his challenge, then effectively nobody else would be here. There would have been no cause for Mashiach or Messiah. There would have been no cause for any of that because effectively each one of us was, held up inside Adam as, we're just potential, but all of our souls are bound up within his. When he started having babies, that's when the souls started splitting. Okay, that's kind of like that's the broad strokes of it, right? And there's this concept. Which I can't, it's just too deep to get into. This idea that when he sinned, he decided to take the Yetzer Hara, which was external from him, the snake, and he brought it into himself. We've got the inclination for evil inside ourselves now. So now it's an internal struggle, okay? So there's that concept. There wasn't this original sin. We weren't born with original sin. He actually took that into, like he originally sinned, but he took that into his actual body. So now it's, the Yetzer Hara was within us. Okay, we still have the inclination for good, and this is where it gets a little bit sketchy for me. This is why I say, I'm not, they're definitely not anybody who actually knows what they're talking about is going to be going, this guy. It's like, all of you people, please just tune out. Go watch something far more intelligent. To everybody else who this is pretty wowzer stuff, stick around, okay? Okay, so let's get back into it. Anyway, the whole reason I was talking about that is it was, okay, well, why was the snake on the ground? Why was the snake the one that was punished? The snake's just an animal, right? I used to own a snake. And it's not like a creepy snake person. No offense to creepy snake people out there. It was just not one of those things. It was a little teeny, little blonde spotted python. Okay, don't judge. Anyway, why was the snake cursed? If, as I suspect, that we've got this Yetzer Hara, let's say it was the Yetzer Hara, okay? The Satan, okay? It's like used interchangeably in Judaism. And he was sent there to challenge Adam. Because you have to be challenged. Otherwise, there's no merit gaining. There's no reason to do anything good if there's no actual challenge. If there's no challenge, then there's no merit gotten for your good deed, right? The challenge with the old bloody man lying on the ground, the challenge is that I could steal from him. I could, but I won't. Okay, there's that, it's like I could, but I won't. It's like, anyway, I think you get the idea. So perhaps what happened is that the Yetzer Hara went to the snake and made a deal with him and said, and I'm totally talking out of my butt right now. I'm just hypothesizing here, but I love to hypothesize. It's so exciting to say, well, what about this? Maybe this could have happened. Like I said, this book is pretty short. To try and analyze and really get to the bottom of what's going on here, that's like what lifetime study is about. And that's what so excites me. And I want you to get excited about it too. So hopefully I'm a little bit infectious here. Anyway, that could have been it. Snake was like, yeah, I'll play ball. Come on in. Yetzer Hara internalizes itself within the snake. Snake, as a result of his cooperation with the Yetzer Hara, that is subsequently why he is cursed, but Adam takes the Yetzer Hara into himself. Yetzer Hara, because here's the other thing. Something else here's a bit of a mind blow that I experienced not a while ago. Who created the Satan? Okay? The Satan. Who created it? Who created the Yetzer Hara? The same guy who created the Yetzer Hatov, the same guy who created the same being entity. God created it. If God created it, then there must be a reason for it. I don't know the reason for my spleen or my appendix, but by golly, it's there. And so there is a reason for it. There's a reason for everything. Okay? So if there's a reason, that must mean that it's not, that it's not evil. Evil comes with man because we are the ones who separated ourselves from God. We're the ones who said we are going to do this. It's our choice, right? We are choosing to separate because that's all evil is. It's just it's just an absence of God because God is nothing but good. Okay, and there are these premises. If you want to read a really cool book, The Way of God, Derech Hashem, it's like lights out. It's these are the fundamentals of all of this. Okay, the Torah. So definitely dig into that, but it kind of gives you a greater understanding. You stop seeing the Satan as necessarily this big bad boogie guy. All of a sudden he kind of becomes the Yetzer Hara, if it's easy for you to think about it like that, instead of saying the name Satan, because Satan comes with such a negative connotation, it comes with such emotional baggage from your childhood. But seriously, the Yetzer Hara, the inclination for evil, the challenger, he's the coach, right? He's the guy who's there saying, okay, you think that think about going to the gym, you can go to the gym and you can be not challenged, right? At all. Are you going to grow? No. I go to the gym on my own and I am an incredibly determined, very passionate guy who creates incredible standards for myself. But I know for a fact that I do not put in the amount of effort that I would if I had a coach there challenging me, saying, as I'm doing, I'm thinking, 10 reps, that's good. And he's like, another one. He's like DJ Khaled. He's like, another one. I'm like, no. He's like, another one. Okay. And then another one until I break, right? That's where strength is given. Is the coach evil? You might hate him in the instant. You might hate him in that particular scenario, but you hired him. He's your coach. He's that guy who's getting you all jacked up and ripped. So just again, lullaby effect, pull yourself out of thinking old thoughts. Nobody is going to die from a question. Nobody is going to die from thinking. Okay? Seriously, Clark. Okay. Example. Okay. So an example of the snake being skeptical and having an element of free will, he contradicts God. Did God really say this? Surely God didn't say this, And this is how we know that it's not a normal snake, because a normal snake would be running purely on instinct, right? There is no contradiction. What does a bush turkey do? Like, nobody knows what bush turkey is. But the animals out there that, like, I feed birds, they don't operate on free will. They might think that they do, especially the birds with, like, more personality, but I feed birds on my veranda. But if, like, they'll come over to me. I've even gotten them to hop. Whoops. I have even gotten them to hop on my arm. Like big birds, like magpies. I've gotten them to hop on my arm and then eat crackers out of my hand. Okay, and they pull at them, One of them, we call him Del Rey. We call his partner Lana. One of them has recently gotten a very injured leg. We don't know why. Maybe something got wrapped around it, but he's like always holding it up. And he's got to stand on his one leg now. And it's getting worse. Okay, so we go out there and feed him because we feel sorry for him, but he actually sits down now as opposed to standing up, bending over, pecking, and then standing back up. He actually drops himself to the ground because it hurts him to stand up, right? I tried to catch him. We used to be wild carers, which is just like people who care a lot about animals and will like go out and will rescue injured animals and take them to a wildlife hospital. Here in Australia, that's really important to us. We're all super nuts about our animals. And I tried to catch him. I was feeding him. I was nice to him. I was kind to him all the time, He and I had a buddy-buddy relationship. He would stand on my arm. Didn't let me catch him. Know why? Instinct. He runs on instinct. Instinct says that guy, even though like a human would be able to rationalize that, we'd be able to understand that, right? Not the bird. Flew away. I've tried to catch him several times. It's like you would think that I, would be able to catch an injured bird, but no, flies away every time. So there's your proof. Okay. Still, the snake was cursed. Kabbalistically, man takes in the Yetzer Hara, as I spoke about. Perhaps the Yetzer Hara needs a body, needs a host. I don't know. We're getting a little bit like, parasitic. We're getting a little bit sci-fi here, but I don't know. That's the thing. We don't know. I don't know. Read. Heaps of intelligent people have been scrutinizing this for centuries, and they've got amazing material out there. Like I said, I mentioned the Way of God. Definitely go out there and get the Way of God. But just start pouring through the Torah. Get the Art Scroll Chumash. Just start reading. It's just so interesting, especially growing up Christian as I did, to go back to these old stories and just get a whole new take on it. It's like, wow, I had no idea there was that much. There was that much to it. You would think that if you're kind of basing your life on something, that you should probably be able to kind of, really talk about it, like in depth and hypothesize about it. And it's like, this doesn't make sense. Let's talk about it, Okay, so Eve exaggerates. Snake contradicts. Snake, challenges her. There's the challenge. Snake challenges, did God really say that? Eve then exaggerates. And she says, what did she say? Hang on. Bear with me. Pages and pages and pages. Okay. I took a man. Blah, blah, blah. Serpent was most cunning. Okay, serpent was most cunning of all the wild beasts that God had made. The serpent asked the woman, did God really say that you may not eat from any of the trees of the garden? The woman replied to the serpent, we may eat from the fruit of the trees of the garden, but the fruit of the tree that is in the middle of the garden, God said, do not eat it. Do not even touch it, or else you will die. Okay? Now that would seemingly be the snake's in. Ooh, I gotcha. God didn't say that. And if God didn't say that, what else didn't he say? He didn't say you can't touch it. God just said don't eat it, right? So there's a rule. There's a lesson. Don't exaggerate, okay? It's a form of lying. It's no good. It only leads to trouble. I've got somebody very special in my life. Two very special people who exaggerate. And And it's the amount of times that I have to, it's like, I am standing here in your mess because you exaggerated a little bit. Anyway, moving on. All right. So, snake has an opening. Eve eats the fruit. We don't know what the fruit is. It's not an apple. Adam eats. God. What did I say? Oh, God curses. Looks like arses. God curses everybody. Everybody's around. Curse, curse, curse. Okay? Adam then names Eve. And we're like blasting past the most probably dramatic part of the story. Just because like I've got, you're going to stick around. Either you're going to stick around or you're going to like tune out. So I may as well keep talking, right? Okay. So anyway, we're like blasting past that because I want to actually come back up here to this thing that I was talking about. God banishes. Then we get God banishes because he doesn't want them to. He's like, whoa, they've now eaten from the tree of good and evil, tree of knowledge of good and evil. They can't be in the garden anymore. Otherwise, they'll eat from the tree of life. This occurred to me a while ago, like perhaps the tree of life, maybe it was all the trees. Maybe there was one tree. Maybe there was one tree in the garden because God actually never pointed out the tree of life. He only pointed out the tree of knowledge of good and evil. So perhaps there was a tree which was frequented. Maybe it smelled particularly good, and so they were always eating from it. Perhaps that eating from the fruit is actually what gave them the strength and the renewed immortality in order to continue to live. Because if you're never going to die, you obviously have to have a lot of strength for the living. Otherwise, why would you even be in there? Why would you be eating anything anyway? Have you ever thought about that? Like, if they were immortal, why would they need to eat? So here we've got the tree of life. And this is where my hypothesis comes in, that perhaps the tree of life is actually what gave them immortality, but they had to eat it on a regular basis. And therefore, so God said, on the day that you eat from this tree, you will surely die. You will surely start to die because I'm going to banish you because what are we all doing if not actively dying? The minute you are born, you're heading down the road to death, right? So this is where it's like, God was incorrect there. No, it wasn't incorrect. If this hypothesis is true, because he knew that as soon as you eat on the day that you eat from the tree of knowledge of good and evil, I am going to boot you out of the garden. You're going to be restricted from having access to the tree of life, which is what gives you immortality, which is what prevents you from dying. Therefore, you're out of the garden. You immediately start dying on that day. You die. It's your death sentence day, okay? All right, let's keep moving on. Adam names Eve, rounds out the naming that God makes, rounds out the naming because until that point he'd never named Eve, and Eve was the final creation. Adam had gone through the whole naming, little carousel. I was like, you're a hippo, you're a giraffe, you're a dog, you're Eve. So that rounds out the naming. We've got closure on the naming thing. God makes clothes for them. He's like, righto, you guys are naked. Now here's an interesting tidbit. It is suggested that up until that point, they were pure spirit beings. I don't know if I necessarily believe that, but there's a suggestion that at that point, he actually made skin for them. He clothed them in skin, right? Just one of the theories, and that's the fun part about this. It's like nobody's definitely right. We won't know we're definitely right until we're sitting at God's throne, right? Okay, so God banishes them. The tree of life. We bring down the cherubim, and the cherubim are there with the flaming sword, and they're like, no, you're not getting in here. And there's more to that story. Oh, let me tell you, the sword and the cherubim and the tree of life, like you be looking for that. Read Psalms. I think it's Psalms. Read Psalms, okay, and see if anything occurs to you. Or just go to Aleph Beta and see if you can figure it out there. Okay, so we got the revolving sword of flame. Why a sword? I don't know. Surely cherubim are frightening enough. I mean, these are like the cherubim, I think is the way they pronounce it, cherubim. The cherubim, they'd be frightening enough, right? I mean, jeepers, they're angels. What do we need a sword for? Like when people see angels, they're like, oh my gosh, it's an angel. Okay? It's like, this is like, and I don't mean like in like IRL, I'm extremely dubious of those stories. But when it comes to the Torah, Tanakh, anytime anybody sees an angel, it's like they were like a dead man, Okay, so then we get Cain. Cain was a farmer, and we get Abel. Abel was a shepherd. We get the offerings made. One of them is accepted. One of them is rejected. You might feel tempted to feel sorry for Cain. Like, oh, why wasn't Cain's accepted? It all came down to his mindset. It all came down to, like, it doesn't, and here's, like, I'll read it. Where are you? Woman's cursed, man's cursed, expulsion. The man knew Eve. Okay, an era ended. Cain brought some of his crops as an offering to God. That's important. Okay, Cain brought some of his crops. Abel, also offered some of the firstborn of his flock from the fattest ones. Firstborn, fattest on Abel's side, and on the other side we've got Cain, who gave some of his crops. Okay, it's all in the attitude. Like, there were burnt offerings, there were grain offerings, there were, animal offerings. Okay, it's not like Cain's offering was bad. He was a farmer. In its elemental state, it wasn't bad. He was a farmer. That's what he had to give. Abel, he had animals to give. It was all in the mindset. Cain's like, here's the dregs of my coffee. That was Cain's, Abel, he was like, I'm going to go down. I'm going to make a brand new coffee. And I'm going to froth it. And I am going to make a four-leafed clover in the middle of it. And then I'm going to make a heart in the middle of that. And then I'm going to put an arrow in front of that. And it's going to say A plus G. Okay? I'm going to give that to God. Okay? So it was all, like, that was the reason for it. Okay, just in case you've never thought of that. Note, I didn't come up with that. Okay, again, I'm the least qualified person. But somebody, I'm like, what else am I going to do right now? This is what I want to do. Okay, note, Abel equals from the fattest. Firstborn, like I already said. Cain, no mention besides some of his crops. So, Cain is punished because he kills Abel. He's like, this is too much for me. Cain becomes the first murderer. Cain murders Abel. And God banishes him. And he says, I'm going to hide my face from you. And Cain's like, I can't bear this anymore. And if you send me out there, somebody's going to kill me. So God protects him. It's interesting, isn't it? Isn't that interesting? Cain gives a bad offering in poor spirit. Gives an offering in poor spirit. Kills his brother. Or gets his offering rejected. Gets attitude. Kills his brother. Lies about killing his brother. And then God punishes him. And he cries out, this is too much for me. I can't bear this punishment. And after all that, God still has mercy on him because he's like, I'm going to put a mark on you that says nobody can kill you. Okay, you have told me that is a fear of yours. I'm going to, it's like, this is how merciful God is. Okay, like, really think about this stuff. Really take a step back. Okay, I remember growing up thinking, Cain, what a jerk. If it weren't for Cain, well, if I were Adam, I'd have succeeded. Don't be so sure. All right. So then we've got Adam, and he knew Eve again, and this is where we get Seth. If you ever want to, have a little bit of trivia at a dinner party or something like that, if you happen to be in a biblical crowd, unless you're like sitting with the pastor or like one of those genuine know-it-alls, kind of like me, then you can say, hey, here's some trivia for everybody. Adam and Eve, right? Adam and Eve had two sons, Cain and Abel, right? Cain killed Abel, which means we had all come from someplace. Where did we all come from? Cain or Abel? People are going to say, well, Cain. Other people are going to say Abel because everybody's internally going like Abel was a winner and Cain was a jackass. And so it's like, and then you can say, ha, I gotcha. Neither of them. Seth. Because Cain, all of Cain's descendants died in the flood. All right. So that's, yeah, there you go. There's your cute little story you can tell at a dinner party. Okay, so then we got first 1 through 7 generations, and it ends in death. We got the 8th generation. That was those 1 through 7 generations all end in death. And then the 8th generation, where we got Enoch. Enoch was taken after 365 years of age. And he was the only one who was like, poof, lifted up into heaven. But he was also, when you're reading through this genealogy, or the Chronicles, it's the only one about whom it was said that he walked with God, and he was taken up, interestingly. Okay? Sforno, who is a Jewish prophet, or a Jewish rabbi, very learned guy, says that he was potentially the first prophet, that Enoch was potentially the first prophet. Like, think about prophets as being all like glamorous. Oh, he's a prophet. No, prophets were not well liked. Prophets came in and they were like, you're doing that wrong, and you're doing this wrong, and you're all doing this wrong, and you need to turn, you need to come back to God. Like, people didn't generally like prophets. Okay, so then we got all the way up to the 10th generation, who is Noach, and that is the next Parsha, but I'm not done. Okay, he rounded out the 10. Okay, so he was the 10th generation. Interestingly, go another 10 forward, and you got Avraham. Okay, it's interesting little thing there. Then we get into like the sons of God and the Nephilim, and that's like kind of weird, and that's even that just goes. There is no explaining that, right? Who are the sons of God? Who are the Nephilim versus man? Like, what is this? Was it Seth versus Cain? Is there some kind of decree? Next verse, we got Titans or the Nephilim. These were the children of the sons of God. Like, what's going on here? Like, I just don't even get it. Okay. Okay. I'm going to round it out. Just by the way, I'm going to round this out kind of with a why I study this. All right. But before then, we're going to come back. We're going to talk about these two trees, because this, actually, you know what? Let's fast forward. I'll tell you that now. Okay. So some people, like I grew up Christian, some people might say, why do you study this? Because in the New Testament, they believe that effectively Paul or Rev Shol has he casts a lot of scrutiny, they say, on the law. They're living under the law, and you're bound by the law and all that kind of stuff. And this is the law, okay? This is so Torah equals. It's like it's a shorthand. It's law, but it's actually instruction. Torah means instructions. The Tanakh, which is what the Christians call the Old Testament, is actually an acronym, and it's made up of the Torah, the Nevim, who are the prophets, and the Ketuvim, which is the writings. So you got your prophets. Everybody knows what the prophets are. You don't need help with the prophets. The writings, things like Psalms and Song of Solomon and the Proverbs, Ecclesiastes, and things like that. Okay, so that's the Tanakh. And so in this first part, we got the law, right? I definitely grew up hearing, that's, been nailed to the cross and all that kind of stuff. But hear me. Why do I study this? Why should you study this? Because Yeshua said so. Yeshua, Jesus, he said so. Plain and simple. He did. Okay? Where did he say it? Matthew 15. Matthew 3:15, sorry. No, I'm on the wrong one. Where are you? Matthew 5. I think it's 5:15, 5:18. Okay, let's just start at 17, all right? Okay. He says, don't think that I came to destroy the law or the prophets. I just told you about that, okay? So we got the law, which is the Torah, the Nevi'im, which is the prophets, okay? Don't think that I came to destroy the law or the prophets. No way, he says. I came to complete them, not destroy them. Let me make them, and there's scrutiny on what that actually means. Complete, what does that even mean? But we won't talk about that now. Let me make this clear, he says, that while the sky and the earth are still here, I am looking at the sky through that window right now. I turn the camera around, but then I'd have to reset it, okay? I am standing, or rather I am sitting on the second level of a house that is built firmly on the ground. The earth, okay? So as far as that definition goes, what he says next is still in effect. He says, while the sky and the earth are still here, not one tiny letter or even part of a letter, not even part of a letter, will disappear from the law. In capitals, the law, as in the book, the Torah. Okay? not until it has all been completed. Okay? Now, you might dispute that. You might say on the cross, he says, it is finished. Okay? He doesn't say it was completed. He says it's finished. You actually don't know what that means. And even if that were the case, the sky and the earth are still here. And therefore, it is finished cannot mean it is completed in this particular sense. Okay? Sky, earth, still here, Torah, in effect. All right? So a person, then he says, a person who breaks even the tiniest little one of these commandments and teaches people to break them will be insignificant in heaven's realm. On the other hand, the person who keeps the commandments, this is the Torah, keeps the commandments and teaches them to others, which is what I'm trying to do, will be important in heaven's realm. Okay? Seems pretty simple to me. So that's why. That's why I do it, because he said so. And I've read arguments that say, well, yeah, he was just talking about this particular time. But I have read arguments, very, very sound, super logical arguments that give definitive proof. And I can talk about those. Give definitive proof for Yeshua effectively saying still in advance, after my death, this stuff is still in effect. Okay, so that's why. All right, you don't have to believe it. You can watch the videos and read through the book just because it's what Yeshua read through, and because it's interesting, right? You're going to carry around, most people carry around the Bible, and it's got the Old and it's got the New Testament. Okay, so if you're going to carry it around, you may as well at least know kind of what's in it. Plus, that's what Yeshua read. Okay, just here's a little something for you to think about. When they refer to the scriptures in the New Testament, they're not referring to, you can imagine that, Paul or Peter, whoever's writing these things, he's like, in the scriptures. Do you think he was talking about what he was writing? No, he's talking about the law, the prophets, the writing. That stuff. Okay? So there's a brain bender. There's something that I had to think about and pull myself out of. That's important. Okay? So now we're going to go back to whatever it was that I wanted to talk about before, which is where Bereishis really got me. Okay? The big question, why create the two trees in the first place? Let me read about the trees. It's tree time. Okay. Boom. Sabbath, 6 days. These are the chronicles of heaven and earth when they were created. On the day God completed heaven and earth. All the wild shrubs did not yet exist on the earth, and all the wild plants had not yet sprouted. This was because God had not brought rain on the earth, and there was no man to work the ground. A mist rose up from the earth, watered the entire surface of the earth. God formed man out of the dust of the ground and breathed into his nostrils a breath of life. God's breath, God's wind, is always an indication of his spirit, okay? Which means we've had God's spirit put into us. That's the Yetzer HaTov, all right? Man thus became a living creature. God planted a garden in Eden to the east. There he placed the man that he had formed. God made grow out of the ground every tree that is pleasant to look at and good to eat, including the tree of life in the middle of the garden and the tree of knowledge of good and evil. Where is the tree of knowledge of good and evil? We don't know, but we know where the tree of life was. Smack bang in the middle. Okay. So, it occurred to me, why create two trees in the first place? We've already kind of discussed a little bit of that. Maybe the tree of knowledge of good and evil, that was a challenge. And over here, and that's like a one and done challenge. Succeed, and we all, this whole thing is over, right? These little rapscallions and ragamuffins running the streets. Where are their parents? That's what I want to know. Anyway, so we got that. We got the challenge over here, but then the tree of life over here. Maybe it's to keep them alive. It's kind of in the name, tree of life, right? And what the note that I wrote down was that it was a choice, a life of spiritual faith in Abba, our Father, versus life in control, figuring things out on our own, struggle, worry, and fear. Are these kids? Oh, Lord, give me strength and patience. I got to tell my son to get out there and tell him to shut up. Okay, so it was a choice. Here's two trees, right? On the one hand, all your job, look after the garden. That's it. I'll take care of everything. Here I am, I'm God. I give you the garden. I give you all the fruit. I give you I gave you water. I gave you communion. I gave you friendship. I gave you a partner. I gave you everything. I am in control of this whole thing. All you got to do is work the garden, eat from the tree of life, and don't eat from that one. That's all you got to not do. Just don't eat from that one. That's it. And you live this immortal, blissful life with God as your number one companion. That's a life of faith. That's a life that says, I'm turning everything over to you because I know you're in control anyway. But doing it in a really good heart. Okay? Then you've got this other version. You've got this, I don't know about that, God. I don't know. I don't think I want to do that. I kind of like the idea of this tree over here, this tree of knowledge of good and evil. I get to become like you then. So we've got these two trees, as I was saying, and you got this tree of knowledge of good and evil. As the snake said, your eyes, from the day that you eat of it, your eyes are going to be opened and you're going to be like God. That seems like it's a bit crucial. This thing doesn't mince words, if that's the saying. It doesn't waste a lot of text on stuff that doesn't need to be there. So anything that it tells you is actually important. Let's just flip to a random page, okay? The sons of Shem were Elam, Asher, Akvashad, Lud, and Aram. It seems like such a straightforward sentence, But there's something in there. Let's find another one. Okay, God then said, the outcry against Sodom is so great and their sin is so very grave. I will descend and see. Have they, what about that? I will descend and see. He already said he knew it. I'll descend and see. Why does he have to descend and see if he already knew it? All of those words are really, really important. So the fact that the snake, that it tells us that the snake says, your eyes will be open, you'll be like God, that seems like it could be significant. And if you put it in this context where you've got these two options, either I can stay here, I can stay in Dad's house, Dad's going to look after everything, and all I got to do is obey the rules, I am happy with that. I will it's the ultimate, faithful spiritual living. You don't have anything to worry about, God's there. There's a gate around everything, and you're on the inside of the castle. There's nothing to hurt you. There's only, blissful, probably really, really good fruit to eat. And all you got to do is work the ground and don't eat from that tree over there. That's God's tree. He said, don't eat from it. That's the one. So that's Dad's tree. He said, don't eat from that one. I understand. Okay. We won't do that. That's faith. That's spiritual living. That's turning everything over to him. And then you've got this, tree of knowledge of good and evil, that once I eat of that, my eyes are going to be open and I'm going to be like God and I am going to get to run the show. Right? And for me, especially in my life, especially recently, that has been since there's this month called Elul. And in the month of Elul, it's just before Rosh Hashanah, which is the Jewish New Year, and it's before Yom Kippur, and it's subsequently before Simchas Torah, which is the joy of the giving of the Torah, which is when we started this over. We started the Parsha over then. Okay, it's such a rich, rich culture. It's just so fun and exciting, and I want everybody to live it, and I want everybody to be a part of it, because it just creates this rich tapestry of life. And for me, especially, when I was reading that, it was a couple of weeks ago, when I read that was that really hits yeah, I do have these two options, Even now, I'm not in a garden, but even now, I have that choice. I have the choice to be able to say, you know what, God, I understand that it doesn't matter how much I think I'm in control, you're actually in control. There are things that I can't control. I can pick up this glass, but I can hold it like this. I can hold up this cup like this. I'm in control of that. But I also know that it's kind of a dodgy cup, and God could at any point cause this little, the connection here and the connection there to completely break, and the thing could fall. Snap. all of a sudden I'm not holding the cup anymore. I'm just holding the handle. And I know that. I know God is in control of all that. So what it is for me, especially what I was talking about, Elul, it's this month where you're like, what am I going to focus on for the next year? How do I want to be bigger by the next time that I actually get to this month next year? When I get to this month, how do I want to be bigger? Like I said, when I'm reading Bereishis next year, there's no way I want to be dealing with the same thing. There's no way I want this to still be the thing that occurs to me. This choices between a faithful spiritual life and the choice between I'm going to do it all on my own and I don't want you involved. Right? So that's what this is about. This is what I was thinking about. It's like, I've got these two trees. I need to consistently choose the tree of life. Obviously I can't eat from the tree of life, but I got to choose the essence of the tree of life and what that means every single day. And I got news for you. When you're in the habit of grasping for control, when you're in the habit of not having faith in God, it's like I'm Drake right now, when you're in a habit of not having faith in God, you got to break that habit. This is the thing. You can't pray your way out of it, okay? You can pray and that helps. But we've all got, God created us creatures of habit for a reason. And I work with people a lot. I work with them on their habits. I work on breaking bad habits and replacing those new habits. And I know the fundamentals of a habit, okay? You will always have a trigger. You'll have something that triggers you. And that can be, a boss breathing down your neck. It can be an overbearing person in your life. It can cause this sense of anxiety. So then you've got the trigger. Then you'll experience probably a physiological effect that actually anchors that feeling inside of you. Maybe it's this feeling here in the pit, like right here. It's like... And so then you'll take a really, really deep breath. And then you will go into, that will then tell your body, oh, it's time to start panicking now. It's time to be fearful. It's time for my anxiety level to increase. That's how that goes. So then you go into full on, like this is the habit, okay? You wind up feeling like total crap, all because you decided to not have faith. There was a decision there. There's always a decision. Maybe you didn't make the decision in the moment, but you made the decision earlier on that says, I am going to behave like this and act like this every single time this happens. Every time I experience this particular trigger or this thing that looks like this particular trigger, that's related to this trigger, anytime that happens, I'm going to behave like that, because you make that choice by not making the choice to do something else, by not making the choice to analyze yourself and wonder, you know what? I don't want to be like that. I don't want to, that's not how I want to live. I don't want to live a life where I'm getting anxiety. And I was getting anxiety. I felt it here. All those things that I just described to you, I was feeling. Take this deep breath in. So I had to decide, what am I going to do differently this year when it comes to faith? What am I going to do differently? For some reason, Eov, really resonates with me. There is when God starts laying into Job. After Job's had his long conversation with his buddies, and his buddies have harangued him, and they're like, you're doing like this, it was because of the sin, and it was because of this, and no, all you gotta do is repent. And Eov eventually just cuts loose, and he's like, that's it, I'm officially cursing God, and I'm cursing every single one of you. Then God comes down. And in Eov 38, he lets Job have it, after he's cured him of his horrible, lumps and bumps and all sorts of stuff. Because he needs Job to be in the right frame of mind. He can't have him suffering physiologically when he's giving him this talking to. Very much what he did with Pharaoh. Interestingly, is that I strengthened Pharaoh's heart. Because nobody can stand up to God. So he had to strengthen Pharaoh's heart to do what Pharaoh wanted to do anyway. Pharaoh wanted to defy God, but nobody can actually stand up to God. So God just said, I'm going to give you the strength that you want. I'm going to give you the strength that you need to continue to stand up to me, because that's what your heart actually desires. And that was something that bothered me too. Anyway, I'm going to totally deviating here. But with Eov, he healed everything because he needed to have Eov in his right frame. He couldn't have him sitting there miserable with welts and like, what do you call them? Like boils all over his body, just going, okay, I get it, I'm sorry. He had to have him fit, fighting fit. Like, come on, you actually want to talk back to me? And he lets him have it for 38, 39, 40, and 41. And then in 42, and I thought that, like, for some reason, when God first starts laying into Job in 38, it was like the first 6 verses of Job. I'm like, that really, for some reason, it hits me. It's like, I need to, because like Daniel, the name means God is my judge. And I dig a lot into personality. God is my judge. That has nothing to do with it. I dig a lot into personality typing, and if you go digging into the Enneagram, it's really interesting. I am an Enneagram number 8, which means I'm the challenger. I am the indicator. I am the embodiment of God's strength. If you want a really cool, it's like a God-centered explanation of the Enneagram, check out Sandals Church. Just type in Sandals Church Enneagram, Enneagram. The pastor there does a really, really cool job of like going in and talking about giving some examples throughout the Bible and talking about the strengths and the weaknesses of these people. I am God's strength. So I need a God who is strong. I don't need this meek and mild person. I need God. I need Master of the Universe God. I need that God to come to me, because if I'm the strongest person in the room, that means then it's all on my shoulders. And I have to take control. I have to be in control because I'm the strongest person around. I'm the only person that I can trust. So I need somebody who can beat me up and down the hallway, stand me up, heal me, keep beating me up and down the hall. Like, that really resonates with me. And that's what he did with Eov. That's what he did with Job. So I thought it was just the first 6 verses. But you know what? Having an affirmation, because I determined there were like 3 things that I was going to do. I was going to say an affirmation every single day, because I can rewire your subconscious through the repetition of something consciously. Okay, so I decided I was going to have an affirmation every single day, and I hadn't decided what that was yet. I also determined that I was going to change the way in which I physiologically behaved, because I knew there was a physiological anchor anytime my trigger happened. Okay, and I knew how I did behave, so I had to change the way I was going to behave when that happened. When that trigger happened, I was going to change what I did, and I had to make a physical state change. I learned this from Tony Robbins, like, incredible. And so I went looking for my affirmation first. I was doing all of this around about September, which is when Elul is, and I'm actually going to be having an Elul challenge. It's like, go to the description. Hopefully I will have a link there, and you can sign up for next year's Elul challenge, because it's just a miraculous thing. It's like this 30-day challenge. We're going to really dig into, who we are and what we want to change for next year. For me, like I'm telling you now, mine was faith. So I decided I'm going to behave differently. But first, I'm going to start with my affirmation. I'm going to say this every single day. That's how important it is to me. I am deciding ahead of time. This is where instinct versus free will kicks in. You got to be more human than animal. Animals behave instinctively. Animals just go fight or flight. Humans, with free will, they say, I see what's going on here. I see what I used to do in my animalistic behavior, and I'm going to choose to do something else. And I'm going to consciously be aware of that. That way, anytime it happens, I'm going to do something differently. So that's what I was doing. Found the affirmation, thought it was going to be like the first 6 verses of Job 38. I could pull it up, but I won't. Thought it was going to be the first 6 verses of Job 38. Turns out, I needed, and I found that, I just discovered it, I needed to read every single morning, and I do this every single morning without fail, and I have done since that time. I needed to read from verse 38 all the way to verse 42, and then I needed to say Eov's response. It's not his first response in that little group of chapters. It's his second response in that group of chapters, because his first response was still a little bit flippant. And that's when God really lays into him again, gives him an opportunity. He's like, hey, you better speak. So I realized that I need to not only read those first those 38, 39, 40, and 41, but then I also needed to recite by heart Eov's response to God. It's not his first response. His first response was a little bit flippant. It was a little bit like, okay, fine, I spoke, but I won't speak again. All right, I did it twice, but I won't speak it again. And when he finally responds, when he finally gets the heartfelt response, when he finally gets God, that's what I have to respond to myself. You want it? Read yourself Eov 42, 1 through 6. So that was important to me. I need to do that every single day, and I have done every single day. I made the conscious choice to do that. Next conscious choice was when I feel my trigger, or and sometimes the only time you I don't know, it's like trying to find what the trigger is interesting. I knew what the trigger had to be about, but then there was this physiological trigger which said, that happened. Now I start to feel the anxiety welling up in here. And ordinarily I would just sit there and take it and try and think myself out of it. So I had to get up. I had to actually stand up. I had to change my physiological state. I had to do something else because it's all a habit. Everything that I feel is just the way my body feels. So if I can change the way my body feels while I'm experiencing this former cycle, this former loop, then I can change the habit. I've been doing that. So that's what really struck me about that. It's the choice between the tree of life, which is faith, spirit, I'm living this life with you, or tree of knowledge, good and evil. God, I'm in control. I'm the smartest, strongest person in the room, and I don't trust you. I don't trust you to look after me. Even though you've got a flawless track record, I'm still thick enough to think that I'm in control. So that's the thing. God's in control anyway. And so that's where I'm at right now. Anyway, that is what struck me about Bereishis so much. I encourage you to go through and read it too. Genesis 1 through, 6? Genesis 1 through 6, 8. Go back through, read it with fresh eyes. Write down the things that occur to you. Write down the questions that occur to you. Write down the things that have always bothered you when you were younger, and you're like, that doesn't make sense. Come on, even if it comes down to just how does the snake even talk? And then I challenge you to go looking for the answers. There's an incredible app. It's free. It's called Sefaria, Sefaria. Okay? Download Sefaria and then go through the verses, verse by verse. Highlight the verse that you've got a problem with, and then it'll bring this thing up. And it's like, hey, do you want all the commentary that's ever been written on this stuff? Here it is. Sometimes it's going to be in Hebrew. You might not be able to read it. But a fair whack of the time, the commentary, the oral Torah that comes along with it from all of these sages, it's just incredible minds, including the author of Derech Hashem, the Way of God. It's all there, right for you to read. You know what? Doesn't mean that it's absolutely 100% true, because oftentimes these guys disagree with one another, but at least it's something for you to think about. At least it's something for you to get a little bit deeper in your knowledge about and actually take control of this faith you say you have. Okay? Like I said, Challenger, Enneagram Type 8. Look for the sandals thing. It's really, really cool. Sandals, Enneagram. I'll put a link down to the description if I feel like it. Otherwise, you can go look it for yourself. Okay, thank you very much for watching. I really appreciate it. I'll be back next week with another Parsha Noach. All right, send this to a friend if they have, I don't know how long I've gone, but if they have the time to watch it, send it to a friend, and I'll see you guys back here next week. All right, adios.